Hey guys, hi. Welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Sonia and my project partner is Julia, and we have put together some content to help you understand the process of adoption from India. Hope you guys find this information useful. If you do, please do share it with other PAPs. Support us by subscribing, and of course, please do share your feedback, will help us to create the future content. Thank you, and let's get started. Hey Julia, hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah, it's always a pleasure. I mean, we have spoken before on many occasions, and
Yes.
this has been wonderful. So I'm so glad to have you with me, and
Thank you.
I'm hoping that this is going to help a lot of people, a lot of prospective parents who are looking to adopt from India.
Mm,
So
yes.
glad to talk to you. Okay, before
Thank
we jump in, I just wanted to introduce Julia to everyone who doesn't know her. Maybe many of you already do. Just in case, she's an adoptive parent, so she has adopted from India. She started the process in 2015 and finished it in 2017. Please correct me, Julia, if I say anything wrong here. Yeah. So you're
That's
an
correct.
American citizen, and you initiated
Yeah.
the process, completed it. Of course, I have heard your story, and it has been very inspiring and also kind of heartbreaking at many times, like how
Yeah.
could this happen. So I felt this would be
Right.
very, very interesting, or
Yeah.
in a way very helpful for others who have gone going through the same, that there is always hope
Mm.
and always success at the end.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, and we are focusing specifically on your story for this one, and then we will talk about what we have planned for near future.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds
So
good.
Julia, all yours.
Take it away. Okay. Well, so yeah, like you said, we started in 2015. My husband is from India. We are an OCI family. So we started with the OCI Healthy Track and also had our agency looking at the special needs track at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, so our first referral was off the special needs, and she was perfectly fine. She was beautiful. She just had a small ASD, so a small hole in her
Okay.
heart.
Okay.
Um, but there were a few things that just told us this wasn't our child, which was a
Mm.
difficult decision to make. But one,
Yeah.
we didn't feel like she was our child, and
Okay.
we felt guilty about that. But we didn't feel that she was our
Yeah.
child. But
Yeah.
we
I
talked
understand.
about for a long time, and we thought, okay, well, maybe that'll come later or something like that. So let's
Mm.
just accept and start the process with her.
Yeah.
Um, and then soon after that, we got a call from our agency that said that they got a call from CARA basically saying, this family is next very, very soon to get their healthy referral. And where this
Okay.
child is in India, the judges tend to drag it out, wait for
Mm-hmm.
years in court, and they should just unmatch. And so with that
Okay.
information, we were like, okay, gosh, what do we
Yeah.
do? That's not fair to this child.
Yeah.
But we don't feel this is our child. And so we were really conflicted about what to
Yeah.
do. And then our social worker, we talked to her and she was like, no, 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 you don't want to do this. We just had a family do this same situation and they finally gave up and their children were devastated and you don't want to go through this.
Mm.
So I thought, okay, we'll unmatch.
Yeah.
And luckily, the next day in our group, somebody matched with her. So we
So
were
yeah, it's
really
kind of a
relieved and
relief.
happy about
Yes.
that. Yes.
Mm.
Immediately, I talked to her and like, this is all the information I
Yeah.
know. And they're like, no, we feel like this is our child. So everybody ended up where they should be. So that was really lucky and really a relief for us.
Yeah.
So then we said, okay, so we're supposed to get our healthy referral soon.
Mm-hmm.
So we waited. And then like a month or so passed, and we were like, wait a minute. I thought we were getting our referral soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was very strange. Hindsight, the one big thing about my story that I can think of as hindsight is that you have to advocate. You can't wait around for an agency or for CAR or anybody. You have to really make sure you know what's going on, know what
Yeah.
the rules are and everything. So that's really an important thing. We were very green in the beginning. So
Right.
anyway, we contact our agency and they're like, oh, I don't know what happened. And then they talk to CARA or whatever, and then they come back and say, oh, basically when you unmatched, they forgot to put you back in line where you
Wow.
were. Yeah. And nobody had said anything, and our agency hadn't followed up. So we were just sitting around doing nothing, and nothing was happening.
Yeah, you would
Yeah.
expect your agency to know this. This is like
Yes, you would.
you.
Yeah.
They should have
Yeah.
communicated this to Kara. Okay, we unmatched, so put them
Yes.
back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's CARA is supposed to automatically do that too. So just like nobody
Right.
paid attention and nobody did anything. So
Okay.
we lost a few months.
Yeah.
And so then our agency comes back and says, well, CARA is going to make it up to you. There's
Mm-hmm.
this 3-month-old girl near Hyderabad, and she's healthy, and they were about to put her on the healthy list, but they're going to offer her to you. And so we
Okay.
said, okay. So we send her this
Right.
file, and we
Yeah.
immediately fall in love with her. I mean, she looks like our youngest son. We just, both
Right.
of us, just like, this
Yeah.
is our daughter. We were so excited. So we accepted the match,
Yeah.
did all
And
the
yeah,
paperwork and everything.
I mean,
Go ahead.
before you kind of started the adoption process, you had two biological sons. So this was back in
Yes.
2015, right? Yeah. So this is 2015
Yes.
or
And
before? Okay.
yes, 2015, this may be going into 2016 by this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all the waiting and everything.
Right.
And we had said we wanted like a toddler. We are like, I don't know
Mm.
about having a baby and diapers and all that. But
Right.
she was only 3 months old, but we
Yeah.
immediately fell in love with her. And so like, okay, this is the one.
Yeah.
And so, we did all our paperwork, and we're waiting and waiting. And while we're waiting, I look up her orphanage and everything, and I find all these news flashes in
Mm-hmm.
India,
Mm-hmm.
that there was a hidden camera in the orphanage, and they caught the caregivers burning the children. And these are little babies. Like they're just lined up in the kitchen. They're taking the ladle over the fire and then burning their hands, 3rd-degree burns. And I was just like, oh my God. So immediately I started getting worried. The
Wow.
news said that these caregivers were arrested, and now there's different caregivers, but you don't know. You're at that point, you're freaking out. You're like, what is
Of
happening?
course. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but my husband was just like, well, they got rid of them, so it's fine. You're like, okay. And we're waiting and waiting, what seems like
Yeah.
a really long time.
Hmm.
And we're waiting for NOC, which at that time it was the orphanage that did it. Now it's the agencies. But we're just
Okay.
waiting. We're like, why is it taking so
Yeah.
long?
Yeah.
Legally, we can't go there and meet her and foster her until we get NOC. So we're still
Right.
waiting on that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I start feeling like something's wrong.
Mm.
You feel like when one of your kids gets hurt bad, like you feel it, something's happening. And
Yeah.
so I'm telling my husband, we need to go there. Something is happening. Something's wrong.
Right. Yeah.
She's in danger. And he's like, he doesn't know either, right? So he's like, just trust the process.
Yeah.
It's
No, I know.
fine. You're just
Right.
freaking out.
Yeah.
A
Mm.
typical woman is
True.
freaking out. You don't have
True.
control. You're scared. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Hmm.
And he's like, well, we're not supposed to go yet anyway, so just wait. And the feeling just got more and more and more powerful, and I just kept bugging him. And finally, he's like, okay, fine.
Hmm.
Look for tickets. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking for tickets, and he's at work, and he gets a phone call from our agency saying that she passed away.
Hmm.
And she
Yeah, you
was
told
at
me
this
this.
moment,
I
she was
was
8
really,
months. Yeah,
I
she was
couldn't
8
hear
months
that.
old. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was 8 months old. And he's like,
I can't
he gets this
imagine.
call.
Hmm.
Yeah, he walks into a meeting that he's conducting. He's just standing there.
Right.
And everyone goes, what's wrong? And the poor guy just
Yeah.
breaks down and tells everybody.
Yeah.
And they're like, go home, go home, go home. And
Of
he's like,
course.
how am I
Yeah.
supposed to tell my wife this? And so he comes home and he tells me, and it's just, it hits you like a ton of bricks. You're just like,
Of course.
why? She was
Yeah.
healthy. She was only 8 months old.
Yeah.
What happened? And what do we do now?
Right.
And later we found out, so through digging and asking them, it was all like, not my fault, talk to somebody
Who did you
else.
ask? Like, who did you
We
contact
asked
when
the
this
orphanage. We
happened?
called the orphanage. We
Okay.
contacted CARA, and we called the
Mm-hmm.
local SARA office.
Okay.
And basically, and we asked what happened.
Hmm.
And give us a death certificate to prove that she wasn't like sold or something like that. Like, did she
Oh
really
yeah,
pass away? Like,
right.
what
Yeah, I didn't
exactly
even think of
happened?
that. Yes, that's also such a
Yeah.
huge thing which
Yeah.
can
And
happen in India.
sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah. So we were
absolutely.
like,
Never
what
know.
happened? And this is all in a span of a few days. And basically the story we were given, and then also from what we found out, she was basically starved to death. She started, her little body started breaking down one day, and they wouldn't take her to the hospital because it was 2 hours away. And it took her 4 days to die. And then they took her to the hospital to drop her body off. And then they tried to not tell us. A week later is when my agency was like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? And literally the email said, warmest greetings. Actually, the child died last week.
I don't
So,
know what to say.
yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah. It was just like,
It's
what?
like the
So
worst
basically they were
you couldn't
trying.
imagine. It's for me the worst nightmare you can
Yeah.
have. When you were matched once,
Yeah.
okay, didn't work out, but
Yeah.
glad worked out for the baby.
Right.
And
Right.
then now you're okay, lost in the queue. Great.
Yeah.
Cara made it up. Fine. I mean, you connected with
Right.
the baby. You feel. I mean, it's your baby now, so it's like my
Right.
baby.
Yeah. The moment
Yeah.
you see them, you're like, this is my
Exactly.
child.
And this is what I feel. I would
Yeah.
feel. I don't know yet, but this
Mm.
is the feeling I think I would get.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
equal to loss of your baby. It's
Hmm.
amazing how
Yeah. And
orphanages
you just
and
feel,
agencies don't think
yeah.
about those emotional
Yeah.
attachments parents
Yeah.
have.
And you just feel so useless because you're not there. The child, and you're just like,
Exactly.
this child didn't
It's
even know that I loved her. She
right.
had, sorry, she
Yeah, I
had
know.
no idea that she was loved. She wasn't treated well.
Yeah.
And she died without even knowing that she had a
Yeah.
whole family that loved her.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
the hard
Yeah.
part, that
I can
no
imagine.
one was there to
I mean,
comfort her.
I mean, she was matched. I mean, the orphanage,
Yeah.
anyways, was gonna, in a way, get rid of her. And this is harsh word I'm using, of course, but this
Right.
is
Right.
if this was
They
the
were, yeah.
intention. I'm sorry, this video is gonna come out very awkward. But I mean, I can't, because I just don't understand how people can do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some ways to explain it is that a lot of times, well, the caregivers are not trained. The caregivers
Yeah.
are usually people from the village that they don't really make much money. They're not trained in trauma and children at
Of
all.
course, I understand, but I mean, it's
You know,
humanity
and
at the end of the day. I forget about
yeah,
everything else.
yeah,
I just can't. I think I
right.
just don't see how you can defend such actions
No,
for
no,
whatever
you can't.
reasons they
Right.
are.
Right. So
India,
then
yeah, no,
we were just like, okay, what do we do? So we have a conversation, like we're grieving, but then we're like, well, let's push for, we still want to
of
adopt a
course,
child and bring her home.
yeah,
That's the whole goal.
yeah, yeah,
And so a couple days later, I call our agency, and this is where it gets worse. Well, not worse, but continues. I say, we're grieving, we're mortified, we're, we're broken, but we want to continue.
hmm,
So please tell them just to give us the next referral. And he goes, what are you
yeah,
talking about? You're going to go to the end of the list and you're going to go to the end of the line. I'm like, why would we go to
why,
the end of the line?
right,
This was a tragedy that was
yeah,
not our fault. Why
right,
would we go to the end of the line? You need to tell them. He goes, and this is typical, not typical, but this is
yeah, but no,
agency
I know. You
speaking.
can say it's typical conversation, or
But the agency was like, you can't tell
yeah,
India, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah. I was like, I know India. I've been married to an Indian man for 20 years. I go every year. You can talk to
hmm,
them and tell them, hey, this
right,
happened, fix it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or do something in
right.
reparation. And he's like, no, you're just going to go to the bottom of the list. We can't do anything. And I was like, you want me to wait a year after this? Yeah, I just was stunned.
Correct.
And so I
And this
was
is
like,
what
okay, I'm going to do
agency in
something
US we are
then.
talking about. I'm sorry. The agency in
Yes.
US told
Yeah,
you
they're no
this?
longer around.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for
They were
everyone, I
shut
guess.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were not good. That's why it's good to know how to pick an agency first. We had
Yes,
no
that's
idea what we
going to
were
be our
doing.
exactly. That's going to be one of
Yes,
our
it's
discussion
important.
points. Yeah. Very
Um,
important.
yeah.
Very, very important.
Yeah. So then I said, okay, I'm going to do something. And so I already know that Maneka Gandhi at the time was the head of the Ministry of Women and Children, which oversees
Right.
CARA.
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
said, I'm just going to email her.
Yeah.
And I email her with like the tag, my message line was, our child just died in the orphanage.
Yeah.
And I just told her exactly what happened. And in less than 24 hours, she got back to me. She basically emailed all the people involved, and except for my agency, the people in India, the orphanage and everything, and just blasted them, said, this is absolutely insane that this happened.
Right.
And you will launch a full investigation and you will give her another child today. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Not my fault, ma'am. Oh, I don't know what happened, ma'am.
So yeah, that's also another typical thing how India works. I mean, glad that at least you have an understanding of Indian culture, given that your husband is there. And then I imagine all US citizens who have no idea about the red tape and how to get around that. I mean, yeah. But not everyone also takes initiative in this way, the way you did.
Right. So, and it's definitely a lesson for everybody else. And it's a lesson I've told other people, because at the end of the day, you're the one that cares the most about your child and your process finishing in time. So, anyway, we get a referral, and at the time OCIs were getting 2 referrals. So the next day, this is just only a few days from when this all happened. The next day we get 2 referrals, and we're still grieving. We don't know what to do. We were already in love with this child, and she passed, and we're like, what do you do? And so we just look at the files, and because Maneka Gandhi was involved, I believe there was no coincidence that both referrals were from the best orphanages in India and the fastest courts, and that's in Mumbai. And so really we decided on the one we decided on and moved forward. And by then I had been talked to enough people by then. I'd been in a group long enough. I knew more of my rights and what I was allowed to do, because my agency never said anything. My agency never said we could go visit the child, we could foster, nothing like that. But now at this point I knew that I could. Yeah. And so I told my husband, like, once you accept a referral, you can go and visit the child. I didn't know that before. Right. So I told my husband, I was like, you need to go and make sure this doesn't happen again. And he was like, yeah, maybe. And I said, oh, this is not a request. You will get on a plane and you will go to your country and throw your mail weight around. You will go. And he was like, okay, I'll go. And I'm so glad that he was the one that went, because I sent him with the list, and he's, we're going to video conference and you're going to meet her and all this stuff. And he was great. And he did that. And he basically explained to the orphanage director, who was a really good person. And he basically was like, I know what happened. It won't happen here. Right. You're going to be fine. She's going to be fine. I promise you. And I got to video conference her really quick and scared her, and she cried. And so I said, okay, you spend time with her. And after that, it was really fast. One, because that orphanage is fast and good, but also because I'm sure it's because Maneka Gandhi's hand was on it at that point. And the India side went really fast. The American side, I had to redo an I-800 because this was a new child. And they were actually really, I told them what happened, and they were really good about it. You know, they were like, oh, we're sorry. This has happened before. So this is the procedure, because I wouldn't say it's common, but it does happen. And I know other people that have been through it. So it's just something to be aware of. Wow. So then after that, it went pretty smoothly. I told my husband, the day I can foster, I will foster. The day I can have her, I will have her. And so we did that. We flew out about a week before getting an NOC. We flew out. We used it as part of our annual trip to India anyway. We got to spend time with her. We saw my in-laws. We came back. And then, it was funny because we were visiting her, and the orphanage director my husband was like, well, how long is it going to take to foster? Because I would have to be in a hotel with her and everything, because we weren't near family or anything. We couldn't leave the city with her, and because that's part of the foster agreement. So my husband was like, how long is this going to take? How long are you going to be in a hotel for? And he said, it could take a few months. It could take like 3 months. And so my husband was like, well, maybe we should go and come back. And I was like, you can go. I am not leaving this country without my daughter.
Oh, wow.
It's like,
So, but for
okay.
fostering, you have to be in the same city where the orphanage is?
Usually it depends on the
Oh, okay.
orphanage. And
Okay.
if you, sometimes you can ask them to put it in a different city or in your family or something. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them, because it's just a foster agreement, ultimately, until you pass court and the child is legally yours, that child is ward of the orphanage and their responsibility. So the social worker
Right.
from the orphanage is supposed to see where you're set up and see that everything's
Correct.
fine.
Okay.
So
Okay. I understand.
yeah, and you
Mhm.
can't really, you can travel in country, but not until you have a passport can you travel outside the country anyway.
Yeah,
But it's
sure.
just a precaution,
Right. Right.
because yeah, it's their
Yeah, it
responsibility.
does make sense though.
So
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't allow
yeah,
it. I mean, it definitely makes sense.
yeah,
I'm just thinking from a OCI perspective, from a US citizen perspective, if you
right,
go to India,
yeah,
should you have that in mind? If I want to foster my child, I'm going to be living in that city for longer than 15 to 20
right,
days. I mean, it's your decision at the
yes,
end of the day, of course.
yeah,
But if you want to
yeah,
do it,
yeah.
you should be mentally
Yeah,
prepared.
and some people, the longest I've seen it take, and that was in UP, I believe, was
Hmm.
like 5 months.
Wow.
A French pap was there for 5 months with her child, and
Wow.
eventually, I think the husband had to go back to work and come
Oh
back
my
and
God.
everything.
Hmm.
So, um,
Yeah,
fostering is no joke. I recommend it
sure.
100% if you can do it because it's so good to bond with the child. And if you
Right.
aren't familiar with India, it's so good to know where they're from
The
and
culture as
everything
well.
like that.
Yes, of
Yeah, so
course.
it's great, and also many
Yeah.
times it can help your process go faster if you're there
Hmm.
pushing,
Right.
because
Because
if a
you're
judge is looking
there.
at all these cases, yeah,
Right.
this person's here, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
pass it. This person's in the US, I can push it to the side.
Right. Right.
Right.
No, I
So
understand. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
yeah,
Makes
so there's a
sense.
lot of
Hmm.
benefits.
True.
The hard part is cost or time and all that
Of
stuff.
course.
So luckily my kids are a little older and my husband could watch
Hmm.
them when
Hmm.
they went to school and everything. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so after that everything went pretty fast. But yeah, I pushed. The director and everything was great. The advocate for the court was great. I mean, we're still friends, but I did push. I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, you got the writtens? I'll come to your
Yeah.
house and pick them up." And she was like,
I don't think they had worked with any
"Okay."
American like you before. Like, what's going on?
Because you need the writtens to get the
Right.
passport and
Yeah,
get
yeah.
out of there. And I was
Hmm.
like, and she was like, I got the writtens on like Friday. I was like, okay, I'll pick them
Yeah.
up at your house.
And actually, this is very common as well. I mean, as an Indian, I know that, and I have done it too.
Yeah.
So I will tell them, okay, take it to your home, and I'll pick it from there. And in America, I can't imagine a
Right.
civil servant taking it to their home and you picking it from their home. But in India, it's pretty common
Right.
going to the like doctor and saying, get the medical
Yeah.
reports ready. I'm gonna come at 8 o'clock, and I'll pick it from wherever you will tell me. I'll be there.
Yeah.
So kind of putting that indirect
Right.
pressure does work, but this is very Indian
Yeah.
communication style. I think you got a
Yeah.
good grasp of
Yeah.
it. So we'll do that in another
Yeah.
video, like how to communicate with,
Right.
like in a polite way, but also in your
Yes.
favor, kind of advocating
Yeah.
yourself. Be
Yeah.
proactive. So
Yeah. I
this
love
is
the
very,
term
very
be a
important.
polite thorn. Yes. Be a polite thorn in their side. Yes.
Very important, though.
Because I
Very,
mean,
very
you have
important.
to respect them and you're asking
Yes.
for something, of course, but
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
it's you're the one that's desperate, not them.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I feel that too. In that sense, America is very close to India when it comes to communication style with government agencies. I have felt that in my experience.
Hmm.
I mean, as a foreigner, I
Yeah.
experienced the same thing here. So, for
Okay.
example, if
Yeah.
it's to do with my visa, it's my problem. It's not US government. If it's to do with my job,
Right.
it's my thing. So there I feel
Right.
I have to be proactive. I have to ask. I have to call them.
Hmm.
So it's the same thing, just in a
Yeah.
reverse way. But to be aware of
Yeah.
it, to be ready for it, it's very
Yeah.
important. And then of course now,
Yeah.
I mean, back then, as you said, there were not so many groups on Facebook, not many
Right.
paps helping each other. And now with your Facebook
Right.
group, another easy thing is
Yeah.
go and ask. Just ask.
Yeah.
There will be 10
Yeah.
people ready to help
Yeah.
you.
It was
You just need
amazing.
to
We even
ask.
have like all Americans have to go to Delhi, and there's one hotel in Delhi that
Yeah.
knows us all, and they're so good to us. They're so good to all the adoptive families, and
Okay.
they have a cabinet where like I'm
Right.
done with this, give it to the next family. So they even have a
Okay.
cabinet for us. I mean,
Wow.
the
Which
Hilton Garden
hotel?
Inn in
Okay,
Delhi
we
is
okay.
fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
Hilton Garden Inn in Delhi,
Hilton
and they're
Garden
not
in
far from the
Delhi.
embassy.
Right.
Yeah,
It's in
they're
Chanakyapuri
really
area,
good.
most probably. And at some point, I
Yes,
will
and it's near the
also,
mall and all that.
right, I will also
Saket.
kind of do a virtual tour of Delhi so that when you go there for the first
that'd
time,
be
you have an
great.
understanding of where things are. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the agencies
Yeah.
talked to me and they said, you know how long it takes from airport to Kara? 3 hours. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's 8 miles. It takes half an hour. Where were you driving? Because they didn't know I'm from Delhi. So they were giving me information like, okay, I didn't want to argue with
Right.
them, but I think it's good to know that
Right.
they will also tell you or feed you
Yeah.
sometimes things, and you should do your research. Like, I understand, of course,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
do your research.
Yeah. Yeah. Some agencies even want to control where you stay and
Yeah.
use their
Wow.
guide and everything. And for
Okay.
like an Indian family, they're like, I don't really need that. I don't need to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
for people that aren't familiar, it's helpful. But for
okay.
people who are, you have to
Right.
say like, well, no, I'm going to stay with family or whatever. So
Yeah. But
yeah.
I think that's a very, very, very good point. And I mean, I noticed while we were talking that you have this inspire that
Oh, God.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. It works perfectly for this particular conversation
I'm
we are
in my
having.
office.
Yeah, it's awesome. So it was really inspiring. I'm so glad that it did work out for you. And I
Yeah.
think it's a game of
Thanks.
patience, and being
Yes.
proactive.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
good
And then
balance of
also
these
just
two.
helping others. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
because I started that relationship with Maneka Gandhi at the time, I was
Right.
able to help others, and my
Yeah.
story was able to help others. We had another family actually from the same agency, and shortly after our daughter passed away, her orphanage was like right down the street, and there
Mm,
was all these news articles that all these babies were dying from malnutrition.
right.
And she was at a point where she wasn't allowed to go either. And she goes, what do I do? I said, go. I don't
Yeah.
care. Go.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad she did, because she went. And by the
Yeah.
time she got there, her daughter was in the hospital too.
Yeah.
And she still had milk. And she
Yeah.
literally nursed her back to health. I mean, and if
Mm,
she hadn't gone, her baby would have passed too.
yeah. Yeah.
It's just crazy.
But that's really
So,
horrible, horrible thing
yeah.
to
And they're
happen.
not all like that. I mean,
Yes. I
they're
have been
not,
to,
but
yeah, I have been to few orphanages because I mean, when I started looking into it, and I go
right,
to India every year, so it's easy for me to just
right.
travel and visit orphanages. And not every orphanage is like
Yeah,
this. I have seen kids, I've
right,
met
right.
them, I've met the
Yeah. There's a
caretakers,
lot
and
of good ones.
it exactly. So there are a lot of good ones, and but who
Yeah,
would you work with is something you can't decide. So this is where
right,
what kind of experience you will
right.
have, you will not know until you start the
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
But
And that
that's
orphanage has
why,
been shut down. At
right.
least
Oh,
Maneka
wow.
Gandhi and I made
Okay.
sure of that. The kids went
Okay.
to a bigger
Okay.
orphanage,
To a
so
bigger
that
or a
one's
better
gone.
orphanage. Okay. Good for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Good
There's
for
been a few
everyone.
there. That's the other thing. If once you're home, if you
Hmm.
suspect abuse or anything like that, you need to
Yeah.
report it, because if you don't, it's going to keep going on. There's been a
Oh,
few
that's
that
right.
there's been a few that we were able to get people fired or orphanage shut down because
Right.
there's
That's a good
evidence,
point.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really important to do that. I mean, people are afraid to do it during the process, and I understand that. But once you are
Mhm.
home, you
Correct.
have to report things. It's important.
Yeah.
So
And you can
yeah,
notice it. Like you can notice if
yeah,
the kid had, yeah. Okay.
yeah. I did a survey and all that, and I did a lot of research for when I was presenting to CARA about this
Yeah.
issue in particular. And yeah,
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that
Okay.
you would notice. Yeah,
So there are a lot
like
of indicators which will help you just observe this in
yeah,
your child. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow, that's a
So
very important point. Well,
yeah,
I think that's why, I mean, after I had these chats with you, kind of inspired me to start this anyways. So hopefully, with next 5 or 6 sessions, we'll be able to help and guide people of how to navigate through
yes,
adoption from India,
right,
where to look for
yes,
information. It's mostly just educating yourself so you can ask the
yeah,
right questions. Basically, it's not more than that. We
yes,
can't maybe help more than that, but
yeah.
at least we can
Yeah,
educate
because I feel like
through.
the responsibility lies with the parent, because the
Right.
agencies, they all do a set of training that's all about the
Yeah.
same, and it's good. But
Okay.
it's really up to the parent to go further,
Right.
join like adoptee groups and listen to
Yeah.
adoptees, and
Yeah.
join information groups to talk to other parents. It's just, you need to
Yeah.
know what the process is and what your rights are and what can and
Correct.
cannot happen, and
Yeah.
prepare. So, and only you can do that. So
So Hope it works out for everyone at the end of the day.
Yes.
That's the thing. So
Yes.
awesome, Julia. As always,
Thanks.
lovely chatting with you.
You too.
And
Thank
we're
you.
gonna then at the end of this conversation, I'm gonna put the list of the videos we are coming up with, and we'll take it from there. So stay
Great.
tuned, everyone, and
Yes.
see you guys again.
See you later.
Take care, Julia. Bye.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.